What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch VOD review. And in this video, we gotta break down exactly what the priority pass is, why it matters so much for Overwatch going forward, and a brand new article where the Riot devs really talk about what the priority pass is intended for and some of the problems that it is creating. So we're gonna break all that down, and then we're gonna have a discussion about whether or not the priority pass is a good idea, bad idea, or does it just need some tweaks to be the perfect system. But go to the GameLeap website right now. We have a special $50 off your lifetime sale in the links down below, so don't miss out on this insane opportunity to give yourself high quality in-depth VOD reviews, advanced tips and tricks, and much more. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, one of the big problems with Overwatch right now, and it's an ever-growing problem that seems to just get worse and worse and worse, it's the fact that there's a gigantic discrepancy in the ranked queues. So for example, if you want to play DPS, sometimes you have to wait over 10 minutes, and if you're anything like Masters and above, especially if you're not playing at peak hours, you're gonna wait like 15-20 minutes, and that is a very consistent thing. Now, some of you might be like, oh, screw you freaking DPS players, who cares? That's your fault for playing DPS. Well, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for every other role either. First off, we gotta talk about support, where sometimes in peak hours you get pretty decent queue times, but still late at night, sometimes you can get really bad queue times just like DPS, except not quite to that extent. And then tanks kind of get the best and the worst of all worlds. Yes, tank queues are basically instantaneous no matter what rank you are. You have to wait like 5 minutes tops, whether you're Grandmaster, top 500, or you're in Bronze, you're gonna get a game incredibly quickly. The problem is, because they want to at least make DPS and support queues not 30+ minutes long, they will liberally throw tanks anywhere. Now that means sometimes you can have like a diamond tank that is thrown in a Grandmaster lobby, or a Grandmaster tank thrown in like a low Masters or even diamond lobby. This is not something that's made up. This is something that is 100% true. I've seen it myself. It's happened all the time. If you play tank, especially not at peak hours, you will just get thrown all over the place. Now this is a big problem that is in Overwatch, with a big imbalance in the actual amount of players that just want to play tank and support versus DPS, and a lot of this is something that Riot needs to solve, which they have attempted to in the brand new priority pass. Now the priority pass basically allows you to queue as a flex, and depending on how you perform, you're gonna get a certain amount of priority queue tickets. If you actually win your game, you're gonna get a pretty sizable chunk, but if you lose, you'll actually just get a lot less priority pass tickets, so you are incentivized to win. Now that being said, there's a lot to love about this system, because right off the bat, the queue times for every single role was like less than half, as even just having a small fraction of people just jumping into that flex queue really removed a lot of the burden from the very few players that were queuing tank and allowed them to throw a lot of the flex people into that tank slot. But the problem is, a lot of these players that are being put onto tank either don't have time in those tanks, don't know how to play tank, or are not even trying in their games. Now that being said, the Overwatch community manager, Josh Nash, basically just released a new article on the Blizzard forum, and it's specifically titled, Using the Priority Pass and Intended Use, and he's gonna talk about the intended function of Priority Pass, and he's gonna talk about a lot of the problems that it is creating. Now basically he states this: the Priority Pass is intended to offer players a reward for queuing flex on the role queue screen, thereby helping to fill games' most needed roles and increase the rate at which matches begin. That is basically what we've already talked about at the beginning of the video. Now he clarifies in this, however, depending on the final result of the match, win, draw, or lose, you will be awarded differing amount of priority passes. So basically, as a takeaway for you, if you want to get the maximum amount of passes, regardless of what role you get put on, even if it's a role that you're not used to, you want to be trying your best, because if you actually win, you're going to get a fat stack of passes, versus if you lose, you're probably going to get only one. He goes on to further talk about how you're only going to be able to use priority passes on roles that are going to be significantly impacted. So basically what that means is you're never going to be able to use these damn passes on tank, because that queue time is always going to be low. But sometimes with support and all the time with DPS, you can actually use these passes to quote unquote skip in the front of the line. Now, as the last thing he wanted to mention, they do not allow you you to use priority passes in groups of 5 or 6 because they state that the system already tries to pair you with groups of similar large sizes, and the groups usually have a good balance of roles, so it's unlikely that a pass would significantly reduce your time in queue. So this really breaks down the baseline of what priority pass is and some actionable things that we can do to give us the maximum amount of actual priority passes. Now that being said, he's going to transition to the next part of the article, which is talking about goals, and he really wants to emphasize what the goals are for this system in general. Basically, the goal of the priority pass is just to flush people from other roles and actually just flush them into the roles that are not being populated, and as such just allow everyone to have much more games actually being played, while at the same time rewarding people for going outside of their normal role. You see, before, if you were a DPS player, right, and you just wanted to play tank and you wanted to actually get in the game instead of waiting for 20 minutes, yeah, you could play 1 or 2 tanks, but if you ever wanted to jump into a DPS again, now you're all of a sudden going to still have to wait that 20 minutes, but this basically just incentivizes that person to jump in those games, jump in that flex queue, and play those games out, try your best so you get the maximum amount of passes, and then get rewarded by having a much smaller time to actually play your main role. Now on paper, this seems like an amazing system. It solves a lot of the big problems that I personally have really disliked about the game since role queue, but he talks about in his last big paragraph in this article, he talks about the misuse of queuing, flex, and priority passes. So he identifies that he understands that playing flex may require you to brush up on some skills that you haven't used in a while. Those who haven't played in a really long time may be grandfathered into ranks that may not be reflective of your current performance, and that right there is an incredibly important statement that we're going to revisit at the end. Now, they don't expect everyone to win every game they play, but that is why they give certain amount of passes based on losses or wins or draws. Now, they believe that over time, it's going to more accurately put people's skills in their appropriate rank and help you actually differentiate your skills in different roles based on your SR. Now, that being said, this last statement is the most important statement in the entire article, where he specifically says that basically, if you get into these flex queue matches and you are intentionally throwing, not trying your best, that is actually a misuse of their policy. So you can actually have penalties to your account, which actually over time could potentially get you banned. So there is an actionable way to penalize people that do this. So if you ever get in a game with someone that is really not trying, it is your responsibility to make sure you go out of your way and report that person so that the system can much better pick those people out, especially if they're just flexing and they're going on tank and they're just rolling into the enemy team or throwing. These type of people should definitely receive some sort of punishment if the actual reward-based system is not enough to encourage good behavior already. Now, there are several big things that we need to talk about regarding this entire thing, whether or not it makes logical sense to maintain the system, and is there any big tweaks that need to come soon, or else the system is just gonna fail. Now, the first thing I think all of us need to understand is there's gonna be a certain amount of time where players are just not necessarily in the rank that they belong. Whether it's a DPS player that hasn't played tank hardly at all, that tank is gonna be put at a very high MMR because it's gonna be based off of the previous MMR of the DPS. So for a while, they could actually be throwing some games even if they don't mean to. So that's the first thing that everyone needs to realize. It's gonna take some time before the system really balances out. As more people play flex and have more time in their roles, they're going to be put at the rank that they actually belong in much more. Now, the second thing that we need to talk about is, are the punishments and rewards good enough? Yes, you get a lot more rewards if you actually win your game versus a loss, but really, maybe there should be no priority passes if you lose. This would really heavily emphasize players to actually try their hardest to win, because otherwise you're not going to get a single priority pass and you're basically just wasting your time. Now, the big downside of doing something like that, though, is it's not only going to put less people in the flex queue because they're afraid of losing and wasting their time in the first place, but it's going to make people really frustrated about the game, because if they are not at their appropriate skill and the system hasn't accurately put them where they need to be and they have to lose like 7 games to get to to the rank that they actually belong in, they have to play 7 flex queue games, lose them all before they get in a position to actually win so that they can actually play their main. Yeah, that could be really frustrating, but there is no perfect system right here. Now, honestly, I think that this is really the building blocks for what can be the most amazing system that we have seen in Overwatch so far, but unfortunately, this is kind of going to be a band-aid fix. We see the imbalance in ranks right now, and a lot of it is just going to be DPS players queuing flex, being put into tank queues, and then hopping back into DPS queues, and that's going to be the cycle over and over and over again. But if we had more tanks, if we had more supports to not only just fill out the roster, but give these roles a much more enjoyable time with dynamic characters that are fun to play, then the natural balance would happen, and then this would just be icing on the cake that Blizzard themselves could always tune and give different amounts of rewards for different things at different times. I mean, they can always tweak the numbers and make this perfect. Maybe sometimes they're giving only 1 flex away, maybe sometimes they're giving 5, depending on the need, and they can use that to incentivize players. So I do think that this is really putting a good system in place, but we're not going to see this actualized until 1, players get more filled into where they actually belong, and 2, we see much more characters added basically in Overwatch 2, but I do think that this is going to be an amazing system for transitioning into Overwatch 2. But you gotta let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with any of the things I said? Do you agree or disagree with any of the things Josh Nash said? And do you think that this is an amazing system, or have you just seen a whole bunch of throwers in your games? I'm really interested in everything you have to say about this, so please let me know in the comments down below. But go to the GameLeap website right now for in-depth advanced VODs, guides, tips, and tricks. Right now we have a special $50 off your lifetime subscription. So do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But I hope you enjoyed the video. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and see you next time.